Ken, I'm a drug addict.
Hey, Ken.
So the reason why I actually wanted to read this is because this particular passage is a prime example of why I'm here this evening. So it says, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. When we started this meeting, gosh, it's been at least probably 5 years ago now, there was a few of us that started this meeting, that were newly sober within the first, couple years. And, pain is a great motivator when you see things in your life. For me, there's a part in the book that says alcohol is a great persuader, beating us into a state of reasonableness. And the last time that I walked in here, I was pretty reasonable. And there was a group of us that started this meeting because we saw the need for a Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting in South Minneapolis. We looked around and there wasn't any meetings like this, And so, we've also been to CMA meetings in St. Paul and Anoka, or at least I have, and those meetings run differently, So there's another part in the book that says, create the fellowship that you crave, and that's what we did here. We created a fellowship of drug addicts and alcoholics that we wanted to see in the room at 2218, and it's ebbed and flowed throughout the years, So the reason why I bring all this up is because every single week, month in, month out, month in, month out, I showed up, and when I put this program, number one in my life, good things happen. And good things have happened in my life. I have an amazing life today, one that I could have never dreamed of, through all the years that I spent in the streets, underneath the bridge, sticking a needle in my arm, robbing people, selling dope, all of those things. I have this life today that's amazing. That's not to say that my life is easy today. I've been up since 3:45 this morning. I get up early. I go to the gym. I go to work all day. And the reason why I was reading that reading because, I talked about this meeting and what it meant to me in the beginning of my sobriety, but what does it mean to me now? What does it mean to me now that life is busy, that life shows up? Do I have that same kind of gnawing desire to show up, to be of service? I'd love to tell you that I do, but I don't. Todd asked me this morning, he said, are you excited for this evening to speak? And I said, do you want the truth? And he said, yeah, as if I was going to give him something other than the truth, anybody that knows me. And I said, you know what, man? I would prefer to go home, basically, after I go to work and watch TV. But see, my sponsor told me a long time ago, it doesn't matter what you think, what you feel, or what you believe. It's your disease, and it's going to continue to lie to you. And so, I got to stand up. I can't sit down. So no matter what I think, feel, or believe, or what I want to do, I show up. And I continue to show up. All the years that I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous or Crystal Meth Anonymous, I continue to show up. And that's one of the most important pieces for me. It talks about in the book that we do this thing shoulder to shoulder, which means that there's no big I's and little U's in this program. There is not one person that is more important than another person that is in this room right now. The thing is most of us are so used to giving up. We're so used to giving up before we give ourselves a chance that we never allow the miracle to happen in our lives. So, if you look at the front of this table right here, minus, the gentleman in the back because you weren't up front, but my guess is you've probably worked all 12 steps. So, what you'll see in a program, any 12-step program usually, you'll see a lot of hands go up for 30 days. You'll see a lot of hands go up for 60 days, 90 days. You start getting into 6 months, a little more shady. You start getting into 9 months, a little more shady. And look at one of my heroes. Hi. Then you get to a year, and then you get beyond. What you'll see is less and less people getting up. Now this is a direct correlation, and it may be me. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But when you see people that do step work, you'll see all sorts of people. Have you worked the first step? They'll raise their hand. Have you worked the second step? They raise their hand. They had third step, fourth step. You start getting up to 5, just like with time, things start getting a little shadier. All of a sudden, people have not worked that step. Now, I don't know that there's a direct correlation, but I've tended to find that those that work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous stay sober. You know? So for me, you know, I came in here with all sorts of problems other than alcoholism. You know, by the time I was 13 years old, I had been beaten, I had been starved, I had been raped. I came in here with all sorts of other problems other than the disease of alcoholism. You know, and so I believe that when I was born, I was perfect. You know, I believe that the person that was born to my mom when she held me in her arms had never done anything to anyone, and nobody had ever done anything to me. You know, so this idea that I had that when I came in here that I was a pile wasn't necessarily true. You know, I had done some real shady things, but as a whole, I was not a shady person. You know, and so as I began to grow, the world began to do things to me. You know, like I told you, I gave you the list of what happened to me, and that's just a micro list. That's just a summation list. That's just a small one to give you an idea, a few punchlines for how bad it was for me. You know, and I didn't know that it was bad. It was just my life. But what I do know now, looking in retrospect, is as people began to do these things to me, I began to grab pieces of things, pieces of armor. I began to put them on, because you weren't going to do this to me anymore. You weren't going to treat me this way anymore. You know, and I walked through my life, you know, with this steel plate on, and I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to love you. And I didn't know these things in the moment. I didn't know that these were the things that I was doing. I didn't understand those things. You know, you can't be awake until you're awake. You know? And it takes what it takes. I still remember getting out of prison. And my very first sponsor, his name was Toby, and he called me Junior. And he told me to read the first 8 pages of the doctor's opinion and the first 8 pages of Bill's story. And I called him and I said, Toby, this stuff doesn't apply to me. And he said, Junior, you should probably go reread that. But the thing was when I read that, I wasn't awake. Now that part in the book says men and women drink or get high essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol or drugs. The feeling is so elusive or tricky that after a time they cannot differentiate the true from the false. Their alcoholic dope fiend life seems like the only normal one. They're restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again find the ease and comfort which comes by taking a few drinks, a few shots, a few pills, whatever that is. This is repeated over and over and over again unless this person is to have an entire psychic change. That's my life. That is 100% my life. But when I got out of prison and he told me to read that, I couldn't see it. I wasn't ready to see it. I was still driven by ego, 100 forms of fear, you know, self-delusion. You know, when I speak in the beginning of the meeting, the first time I introduce myself, and it's really a reminder. It says that I said I'm a drug addict and my problem is Ken. Drugs and alcohol have never been my problem. They've been my solution to the problem. Now, that's not to say like when I first started getting loaded, I myself was the problem. I had lots of problems. And those things were inside of me. You know, and so to separate myself from that, I started getting loaded. And I drank alcoholically from the time I was a little kid. You know? But for that little kid to have to pick up alcohol in the first place gives you a pretty good idea of what my life looked like at 5 and 6 years old. You know, so as I'm walking through life, you know, I got this feeling inside of me, and I didn't know what it was. It was this, it was just, it was this feeling right here. And I didn't understand what that was. But I knew if I got loaded, I could get in the moment, you know? And I'm not the guy that'll sit here and tell you drugs and alcohol are bad. They kept me alive. They kept me alive for a long, long time. You know? I don't know what I would have done without drugs and alcohol. You know, and so majority of my life, alcohol and drugs, they did stuff for me. And at some point in my life, they started to do things to me. You know? All the things that they gave me in life, they began to take it away. I can remember, so the last time that I got loaded, I was almost 5 years sober. And this is not a lie. I accidentally took a drink. And I spit it out. Now, I was in a strip club, so that'll tell you what my spiritual condition looked like at that point. And I spit it out. And I will tell you, for the next 2 years, there is nothing worse than a head full of AA and a belly full of booze. I'm going to tell you that right now. I wasn't somebody that was just around the program. I didn't just come to meetings by osmosis. Like, I worked the steps. I had sponsors. I got on my knees every day. You know, I prayed. I worked with guys. You know, and somewhere down the line you talk about being awake or being asleep. I was asleep to some things. You know, I talked about all those problems that I had before I got into the program. You know, before I started using drugs and alcohol. We're talking mental health issues. You know, I'm bipolar. You know, not the kind they just sit down and tell you, hey, you got some behavioral problems, you might be bipolar. No, like I'm like bipolar, like acute manic episode bipolar. Mixed episode seeing things bipolar without medication. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. Not the kind where you think, oh, I have OCD. Like, I count numbers. I do all sorts of weird stuff. I kiss the ground in the right order so God won't strike me dead at this point. I have to say Jesus' name in the right enunciation when I get up off of my knees, or a bolt of lightning is going to come down and it's going to strike me dead from the sky. Like, I got real deal mental illness. You know? I'm about, by the time, I think I was through maybe 318 pounds at this point. I got an eating disorder. I'm eating 10, 15, 20,000 calories a day. You know? And I started researching diet pills. I started taking diet pills, you know? And to counteract the diet pills, I go to the psychiatrist. I tell the psychiatrist, like, hey, blah, 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 blah. You know, and before I know it, I'm on Klonopin. You know? Then I got bad relationships. I got bad relationships because I growing up, I didn't know what a healthy, dynamic relationship was. And I'm not just talking about man and woman. I'm talking about with my parents. I'm talking about with my classmates. I'm talking about with myself. I'm talking about with the whole world at large. I don't know how to have a relationship. This is what my idea of relationship. So one night on Monday night, Squad 22, I was the chairperson. My best friend is the treasurer. He doesn't bring a pen for the second week in a row. I leaped the wrought iron fence out here and threatened to kill him in the middle of the street. That's my idea of friendship. Now that's how I don't know about you, but you know, to me, that's not what we call a loving, caring relationship. And I did love that man. I still love him to this day. He's one of my best friends. Yeah, good job, bud. I'd still jump the fence on you. You know, so there's all these things that I got going on the last time that I get loaded, and I don't understand these things. And, you know, when I accidentally took that drink, I spit it out. I looked at my homegirl who was a stripper, and I was like, I'll be back. And, yeah, next 2 years of my life were absolute hell. I went from a paid vacation job, 703 credit score, nice vehicle, place to live, to I'm walking the streets with a backpack, you know. Before I know it, I'm shooting up by my cell phone light underneath the bridge, you know. And I keep those things right here. Now, the reason why I keep those things right here is because if I keep them right here, I'm trying to get them down here. You know, the longer that I stay sober, I'm not a slow learner. I'm a fast forgetter. Like, I can speak these words of what it was like to be underneath the bridge shooting up by my cell phone light. Can't really feel that way anymore. You know, the book talks about failing with sufficient force to enter with our mind the suffering of a month or even a week ago. You know? And so that complacency thing, that what it talks about in the book, is extremely important to me, that I do not continue to remain complacent in this program today. Because I may not be able to feel it, but you know what I can feel? I can feel the power right now as I'm standing up here. I can feel the energy right now as I'm standing up here. Because you want to know what I know? I know that most of the people didn't stand up when they talked about having a year or more. So everybody that's up here is hope. The guy over there that's 7 days sober, he's hope. He's hope. He's the hope that maybe I could transmit something that I have today. I hear all the time the newcomer's the most important person, which is true. But without the person who has been here for a long time, what does the newcomer have? The newcomer has each other. I know what it was like when I was new, in my own mind, and I got together with somebody else that was new in their own mind. I'd love to tell you it didn't end up good, but it depends on your definition of good at that point. So the people that have been here a little while are just as important as the people who are just walking in the door. But I don't ever want to forget what it was like underneath that bridge. You know, so this time I did some things differently. I did some things different. And I 100% expected to die loaded the last time that I got loaded. Christmas Day 2010, I unstrap my pistol, I stick it next to my thing, I shoot up a fatal shot of heroin and meth. Drop dead, turn blue, right on the ground. They brought me back to life. I threatened to kill the ambulance driver. They had me strapped down. I threatened to kill her. I jumped up out of the ICU 12 hours later. They told me I had to find a sober ride, and I said, I'm not sober. They said, sir, you have more drugs in you than this whole unit combined. Yeah, you need to figure something out. I walk out of there. I got pants, no shirt, no shoes, no wallet. My chain's gone. Everything's just gone. And I got out, and I was mad as hell I was alive. I threatened to kill the person that dialed 911 and saved me. She hid the pistol, and here I am threatening to kill her. And I shot up on the same spot I died with the same needle 12 hours later. That's how I was living, you know? And so, you know, for me, this time when I came in here, you know, I'm not going to say the sobriety that I had before was bad. I was doing the deal, you know, but there was things that I had that were unresolved. They were unresolved. I think you talked about that one thing. That one thing. You know, for me it wasn't like something I was hiding. There was all these things that I didn't understand. I didn't know. I thought if I just sat in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous enough, I just did enough steps, I just prayed enough, I just worked with enough people, I just made enough amends, that my mental health would go away. That my eating disorder would just vanish. They told me you can use these steps for anything. I tried with eating. I tried. It didn't work for me. You know, so this time I got a lot of professionals outside of this program, you know, drug addicts and alcoholics, you know, that have worked the steps are really good at working the steps.
Come on,
Eating disorder treatment therapists are really good with people that have eating disorders. Mental health providers are really good with people that have mental health issues. It's funny how that works. And one of the biggest catalysts for change was I had eaten my way up to 368 pounds. And I was I was researching diet pills again. In fact, I was in this club with this girl that worked out, and I was trying to figure out which diet pills she was on, now that I think about it. And, I was driving down the road, and there was a billboard for the Emily program, and it said, "Is food eating you?" And I was like, well, maybe I should take a look at this. And I did a little survey, and check, everything but one box. It turned out I had an eating disorder. It's a miracle. I went to the Emily program, and I graduated the Emily program. And you want to talk about way different than drug treatment. And it was really uncomfortable, and this will kind of tell you what my internal condition looked like when I got there. Instead of telling you what to do, they'd say, "Ken, how can I best support you in your decision for change?" I was like, But I'm going to tell you right now, them people saved my life. They absolutely saved my life. If it wasn't for the Emily program, I wouldn't be here today. Yep, I'm telling you this right now. Without the Emily program, I would not be here today. It was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever went through in my whole life. And so, I did that. I did OCD treatment at the U of M with one of the this guy writes books. Everybody that does doctorates, they do their rotation through his program. And I'm so compulsive, I did a 12-week course in 8 weeks. I'm not joking.
Yeah. I know you're not.
And it was life altering. So I'm going to share the some of the things that I've been able to do or I've been able to accomplish by doing all of these program-orientated things, whether it was having a sponsor and doing inventory and making amends, or going to the Emily program, or having a psychiatrist that I see, taking medication regimens. I get up, that's part of the reason I got up at 3:45 this morning, because I got a new job, Monday through Friday job. I work 8 to 4:30. That doesn't stop progress for me. So I get up every morning at 3:45. I go to the gym. I prep my food twice a week. I make my meals. I eat 6 times a day. I drink 2 gallons of water a day. Because just like the program, there's all these other things. Like, I had to set myself up to succeed. Sponsor, steps, psychiatrist, medication, eating program, gym. Like, this is a holistic approach. These are all these things. They're not one thing or the other is going to keep me sober. It's all these things going to keep me sober, because they all point at one thing, which is God. When the master points at the moon, all the idiot sees is the finger. All of these things are things that I do in my life that point at the power, to show you what the power has done for me. So, he asked about, recording this. What it brings to mind is one of the most amazing experiences. See, at some point, I don't know what happened, but I became this responsible individual that day in and day out went to work, whether I liked my job or not, and I had the opportunity to do some things. One of the first things is I got a passport on felony probation. I got a passport. Oh yeah, by the way, you're looking at a multi-convicted felon. I forget about all that now. Like 46 months, 132 on parole or probation. You know what I mean? They gave me a passport. Can you believe that? And she's like, I'm not dealing with you. I'm going to put you on administrative. So you can go gallivant across the world. And I did. I've been all over. And on my 6 years, right before my 6 years, I had this opportunity. I saw this guy. And this is going to basically sum up my whole sobriety. I can do anything I want to do. Like, if my building burnt to the ground right now, which is quite a possibility. KG knows where I live. That building might burn to the ground any day. Any day. Or I can move wherever I want. I go on vacation whenever I want. I can pretty much do whatever I want to do in life. Not only because I have the financial means, but because I have the freedom inside. And I have a lot of people that have really looked out for me, stuck by for me. They've given me a skill set where I didn't like my job. I put my resume out, boom. Within 2 hours, I get a call. We don't want you to do an interview. I do the interview the next day. They don't even interview anybody else. This is like a real deal Monday, through Friday, 8 to 4:30 job, with the opportunity hopefully at some point to really excel. It's a skill set, So I've had a lot of people that invested a lot of time in my life because they watch me put in the work day in and day out and day in and day out. And there's a lot of days where I didn't want to get out of bed. There's a lot of days where I didn't want to get out of bed. There's a lot of days where I woke up like this, and I still got up. And so the summation that I'm talking about is, so before my 6 years, I'm at a meeting, and they're doing a podcast. And I hear this guy talking about these podcasts everybody tells their story on. And I'm like, man, y'all don't know me. I want to do that. Y'all need to hear me. But he lives in Costa Rica. And he does them over Skype. And I was like, no, that don't work for me. I have this thing about energies. Like every person that's in this room right now that isn't on their phone, they are, even the ones that are. And I wasn't even looking at you, I was looking at him. They're committed to this process of this transfer of energy. That's why the newcomer is just as important as the long timer. The transference of energy. And so I was like, I went up to him. His name is Omar Pinto. And I said, hey man, I want to do your podcast. He's like, oh yeah. I was like, no. I want to fly to Costa Rica and do your podcast. And he was like, yeah, okay. That next year I flew to Costa Rica and I did that podcast. And so I was supposed to do the podcast. I'm over my time anyway.
No.
Oh. I flew to Costa Rica and I was supposed to do the podcast the day I flew in. He had some trainings going on. He couldn't do it. That first day, me and her, man, it was like my first month of sobriety. It was hell. So we flew into San Jose, and if you ever been out of the country, especially a place like San Jose, like Chicago, they ain't got nothing on this place. I'm telling you right now, the standard place there has wrought iron and razor wire. Like, it is no joke. It is no joke. And we fly in and do the rental car, like the insurance, this, that, and the other thing. Like I had to pay $500, I had to drop $1,000 to get in that car. I had booked hotel rooms on the opposite sides of the country because he had said, I read fast. I didn't say I read detailed. I said I read fast. These are suggestions. I thought he was saying book these hotel rooms. Well, Manuel Antonio. And wherever the hell we were on the Caribbean side, one's on the East Coast, one is on the Caribbean. Yeah, so I find this out, and he's like, you can't meet. So, we drove around. I don't speak Spanish, and I don't read Spanish, but I know the ghetto when I see it. There's guys serving crack in the field. She pulls out her phone to start taking pictures. I'm like, the GPS, because my phone wasn't working, took us up a mountain pass. So we're sitting vertical, and she's like, well, maybe we just keep going over, and we'll end up there. And I'm like, you know what, man? Sometimes you don't follow the GPS. Just saying. We asked some guys, they had their cowboy hats on, and I asked them, Manuel Antonio? They say, Ja, San Antonio! They had obviously never left that patch of mountain. You could just tell. We found this place, the guy we found, it was La Mission, and I thought it was like a Bible mission place, and it turned out to be a hospital. The kid outside said he didn't speak English, but his dad did. So he goes and gets his dad. His dad comes out. And you know, you talk about being smack dab in another country. You talk about being in the hood. You talk about it being rough. You talk about, you know, we're in a car for 8 hours, like driving around this city. We don't speak the language. We don't know how to read the signs. You know what I mean? She's trying to get me to go over a mountain pass, like in this little tiny Suzuki. This guy, he comes out. And we explained to him the situation. And I want you to draw all of these lines of thought that I'm talking about. I'm talking about all these lines of thought. We're in this place we don't know, sobriety. We're trying to do what we don't know how to do. We don't have the instructions. We can't speak the language. That's showing up to meetings, you know? And we keep asking people, and finally somebody speaks our language. That guy in the back of the room might find somebody here today that speaks his language. You know? And then he guided us. He guided us, and in San Jose, they got more toll roads than I-35 down all the way down to Texas. I'm telling you this right now. And he paid our tolls as we're driving through. I'm telling you, there's like 6 or 8 lanes of traffic. They do not care. They got people on motorcycles, people in the middle of the freeway selling plantains. Like, you better be moving and you better be going. And we followed him, and he took us to a mountain pass. We then drove through that mountain. You know? So here's this guy that guided us, like finding somebody in this room to be able to guide us. And, you know, I wanted to give up for like 8 hours. Just like in the beginning, I wanted to give up being sober. You know, there was many times I wanted to give up, but I didn't. And I didn't give up in this country, because what do? Just lay down in the road? You book a flight home? You know, you just keep moving. You keep pushing no matter how hard it is. You keep moving. And we did. We found a guide, and he took us. And man, we went through these mountain passes, just like being in this program, being in the neighborhood where I live now. You know, all these things are going on. We're coming, there's mountains straight up. And I'm telling you, these semi-drivers are ruthless. They are ruthless. They're coming at us 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. You better have some faith in something. There's no like street lights. There's sheer rock mountain walls. And we drove that way for hours and hours and hours and hours. I don't even know how many hours it was. It was a long time. It was a really long time. And we got to where we were staying. And we went into our they were like efficiencies in the jungle, basically. They were really nice. Yeah. But I mean, like, we talking about, like, dude, there's monkeys throwing mangoes at us. Yeah, like, dude, this is a real deal, man. Like, you know. And we got up, and if anybody's interested, you can see the pictures the next day on my 6 years. I got out, and I looked, and you could see the mountains, and you could see the ocean. And it was like the jungle had opened up and the sun was shining. And there's all this noise. That's the jungle. And it was all because we didn't give up. We kept putting one foot in front of the other. Kept pushing. Asked for help. Let somebody guide us. And the next day we got to get up and we got to see the beauty in this program. Now that's not to say the next 7 days were easy. There was a lot of difficult times, but I'm going to tell you right now, in the end, it was 100% worth it, just like standing here sober today. Gratitude is an action. Thankfulness is a state of mind. I appreciate y'all. Have a good night.